Night after night the dreams came. At first they were subtle, shadows stretching too long, whispers curling through the edges of sleep. Then they grew bold. Figures without faces, voices that knew your fears before you spoke them, presences that searched the hidden places of the heart. They did not wound the body, but they pressed on the mind, feeding on fear, confusion, and forgotten pain. It felt as if something was reaching inside, scanning for weakness, trying to steal peace, joy, even purpose itself. People called them many things: night terrors, dark forces, dream criminals. But those who paid attention understood. These were distortions, intruders that thrived on fear. They studied each person carefully, looking for old wounds, buried doubts, and silent anxieties. They wove illusions, making lies feel real, making fear feel permanent. And in those dreams, it seemed as though blessings, clarity, confidence, hope, were being drained away. But something began to change. One by one, people turned not to fear, but to truth. They remembered the words written long ago in Book of Deuteronomy, that God goes before his people, that he is a consuming fire against what is evil, and that no darkness can stand where his presence dwells. They began to rest with intention, speaking peace before sleep, anchoring their minds in faith rather than fear. And then the dream shifted. Where shadows once stood, light began to break through. The same presence that once felt invasive now seemed exposed, fragile, unstable, unable to remain. The searching stopped. The fear they once fed on was no longer there to consume. In one dream, a man stood face to face with the darkness that had followed him for years. It reached toward him as if to pull something out, but it recoiled. Not because of him alone, but because of what stood behind him. A presence, vast, unshakable, holy. The darkness trembled, not with power, but with recognition. For it is written across the truth of the Bible that what is wicked cannot endure before God. Not people, but the forces of deception, fear, and destruction are brought to nothing. They collapse under the weight of truth. They are scattered, undone, erased. And the people began to see something remarkable. The evil had no true authority. It had only ever borrowed fear. Without fear it had nothing. In dream after dream the intrusions ceased. The webs of confusion dissolved. The inner world, once chaotic, became still, clear, protected. People no longer fought in their sleep. They rested. They healed. They created. And just as it is written, they witnessed the end of what once troubled them, not by becoming it, not by fighting others, but by standing in truth and watching darkness lose its hold. They saw with their own eyes that what was meant for harm had no lasting power. Peace replaced fear. Clarity replaced confusion. Joy returned, not forced but natural. And through it all, one truth became undeniable. All glory belongs to God, for his protection that surrounds even in sleep, for his wisdom that reveals what is false, for his love that never abandons, for his mercy that restores what was shaken, for his kindness that heals unseen wounds, for his power that dissolves darkness without struggle, for his majestic kingdom that stands above all fear, all illusion, all night. No harm was done, no soul was lost, because all are his children, and in him there is no fear, only peace that watches over every dream.
Story 2. The web that was never real. They said the darkness only came at night, but that wasn't true. It came in thoughts, in whispers that didn't sound like whispers at all, but like your own voice, asking quiet questions. What if it's your fault? What if they never loved you? What if you're alone? At first, no one noticed. The evil didn't arrive with claws or fire. It came as a web, thin, invisible, almost beautiful. It stretched between people, between memories, between moments of weakness. And once it touched the mind, it began its work. It studied fear, not because it was powerful, but because it had nothing of its own. No love, no peace, no joy, no truth, only emptiness and imitation. So it borrowed. It learned how to twist kindness into doubt, how to turn compassion into exhaustion, how to take vulnerability and reshape it into fear. It whispered lies that sounded personal. You gave too much. You weren't enough. This is happening because of you. And people believed it, not because it was strong, but because it was persistent. The web grew thicker. It made people feel isolated, even in rooms full of love. It convinced them they were under attack, abandoned, or betrayed. It replayed old memories over and over, looping guilt like a trap that never closed but never released. That was its greatest trick. Not destruction, distortion, because evil had no real power. It could only convince. It projected its own nature outward. Fearful, unstable, empty. It painted that image onto the children of God, hoping they would accept it as their own reflection. And for a time, many did. Until one night, someone stopped running. Not fighting, not panicking, just stopped. In the stillness, something broke. Not outside, but inside the illusion. They remembered something deeper than fear. Something older than the whispers. Words once written, spoken, lived. Truth that didn't bend. That God goes before his people. That protection is not earned through fear, but received through trust. That lies collapse when they are no longer believed. The web trembled, because it had never been holding them. They had been holding it. And when they let go, when they stopped agreeing with the fear, the guilt, the confusion, the structure began to unravel. Not violently, effortlessly. The loops lost their grip. The accusations lost their voice. The presence that once felt overwhelming became small, weak, exposed, because it was never a kingdom. It was a shadow pretending to be one. And shadows cannot exist without light to stand against. One by one, others began to see it too. The same thoughts that once felt personal now looked foreign. The same fears that once felt real now looked scripted. The same attacks revealed themselves as patterns, repeated, predictable, empty. And in that realization, peace returned. Not because the world changed, but because the truth became clearer than the lie. There were no hidden enemies, no secret plots, no unseen rulers. Only a web of fear that had been believed for too long. And now, it was gone. The night didn't feel dangerous anymore. It felt quiet, safe, watched over. And in that stillness, one truth stood above all others. God had never left. His protection was never withdrawn. His love was never absent. His presence was never overcome. The only thing that had ever been under attack was perception. How do I do that? Fix my perception? Next, how to train.